Today, we're going to talk about gamification and gamification as an approach for employee engagement. In the session, we will kind of go with basic understanding of what gamification is all about. And we'll then quickly get into the story of how Allstate has gone into gamification and our approach, our architecture. And at the end, we'll just talk a little bit about the product roadmap that for the products that we've created and show you a quick demo and talk a little bit about the next steps. So what are we thinking about as well. Gamification, let me start with the definition of gamification. And this is something which I just picked up from the web. It just says application of typical elements of game playing, like point scoring, leaderboards, to other areas of activity, which is non-game activity. An example that is given here, which I just picked up from online, was an online marketing techniques to encourage engagement with a product or a service. Now, we try to apply this for user employee engagement. And that's some of our success story that we would like to demonstrate today. Now, when you apply, say, gamification, game mechanics are constructed in such a manner that it creates this feedback loop to induce motivation and engagement. So it naturally kind of tends towards engagement if you just understand how gaming works, and it kind of gets into user psychology. So it's a powerful tool to actually to engage people, to motivate them. And if you apply subtle learning techniques in it, as people go through the game, as people go through certain layers, it kind of encourages, and it kind of it also has a higher retention power. When you kind of do certain gamified learning, gamified learning and development approach, and there's enough papers as well as enough study kind of to prove that. And that's the reason why we kind of we started to kind of look at gamification as an approach. One of the things that you see here, it's called the hook model or the hook method, and this is sort of what classifies gamification, or kind of help you understand what gamification is all about. In this hook method, it shows 4 actions or 4 phases there. It starts with a trigger, right? Something that will encourage a person to kind of go in and interact. And this is what most marketing companies or online companies use as a mechanism of engagement, attraction, and motivation. So it starts with a trigger, like click this. You see a photo of your friend on Facebook holidaying. It creates a trigger in your mind to go plan your next holiday, right? Trigger, and you've seen this, that triggers are pretty attractive, and it kind of induces people to click on that link or do certain things when you actually see things right in front of your eyes. That leads to an action. Action is where you click or you play or you do certain things. And once you perform that action, there is some reward at the end of it. And that's what is the next step, that kind of goes in logically, that you do something and you get rewarded. And that's where, your senses start, becoming excited, you start liking it, and then gets into the next part, which is investment, where you are actually kind of invested into it, your time or your energy, or sometimes people actually pay money. That's what kind of drives e-commerce businesses. So an example of this hook method is, say, if you are any of those online food ordering platforms, you can see suddenly there is a mail that comes in, click this, play this game to get hidden reward, and you don't know what it is. You play the game, you click on it, you play the game, you get a 10 or a 15% discount voucher as a reward. That kind of excites you, and now that you've got this voucher, there is a high chance that you will probably do some ordering of food or something along with it. So it's a pretty common technique. And gamification, if you look at the way the games are played, kind of use this hook model to start engaging, attracting, and making sure the person's time who's going through the game is actually engaged into it. Now, you can pick some of these and then directly apply these in a non-game context, right? Like training scenarios, learning, development. That's where we were kind of exploring of to how to kind of take a gamified approach towards some of the mundane things that we are doing, and we'll look at the examples later. Again, curiosity, it has to be unpredictable. It has to have some enjoyable loops. It has to have some rewarding mechanism. That's what makes this whole thing excited. If you play a game like you going through a series of PowerPoint presentations, or you're just watching a video, there is hardly any excitement into it. So you have to think from that angle as well, to include some of these things where you are encouraging people to like open a door and see what is inside, right? That's what triggers, and that's what gets the action. When you go in, you see something that you like, or you get a wow factor there. I mean, that's a reward. And then the person is encouraged to open more doors, right? So it has to kind of incorporate some of these concepts, and that's what makes these things unique as well as engagement. One of the things which we took, the reason why we took this is it also gives somebody a self-paced, personalized approach towards training and development. I mean, if you look at training and development, or if you just look at certain mundane things, it's sometimes very predictable. You go through those 10 steps in exactly the same manner. The person who is actually facilitating goes through the same slides in the same manner. This one, there is a lot of personalization. You are left free to do whatever you want to do, as long as you, at the end, if you complete a larger um, a goal that that is either set for you, or kind of you set yourself, you're kind of done. So it lets you take a personalized approach and a self-paced approach, meaning if there are 10 people doing it, it's not necessary that all 10 have to complete it at the same time. You can actually make it flexible, that one can do it at his own pace. So let's look at history of how we started. In 2018, I think we did our first VR-based gamification, led by the manager who's heading our Allstate Garage innovation team. He kind of came up with this idea, say, why don't we start using VR and AR and use that as a method of training insurance adjusters. Now, we are an insurance company. Insurance adjusters mean that, if there is a, say, for example, if there is a home insurance that that people sign up for, when the adjusters go there, and if there is a damage, there are certain things that they need to check. So is there before you kind of onboard adjusters, is there a way in which you can train them on what to look for? So if there's a kitchen fire, which are the things that you need to check? If there is a or if you are going and assessing a place for insurance, what are the things that you need to check, like basement flooding in the US? And these are pretty standard set of checkpoints. So we built a POC, showed it to the claims NNLD team, which is learning and development team, and that got created into a fully funded project for Allstate claims training. We didn't participate in development of that project, but it's right now there as a gamified approach towards training and onboarding insurance adjusters that is there in the US. It was done by a third party. That's how we started this journey. Then the pandemic kind of gave us another opportunity. Now, we were sitting in the office, or we were not sitting in the office. There were a lot of people whom we were onboarding. We were doing a lot of induction trainings, and induction trainings were done like how things went from physical to virtual with just introduction of Zoom. Nothing else changed. Our induction as well as onboarding also just went like that. I mean, instead of doing it in an office where somebody would come in, face-to-face interaction was there, that just went in, and it just become a Zoom session. The content and the material was exactly the same. And the idea came in saying, look, we are going to be in a hybrid environment for quite some time, right? And this is what we kind of realized when we were about 4 or 5 months into the lockdown, and we were kind of assessing what would happen. We kind of came up with this idea saying, look, we are going to be in an extended period of lockdown, or a very limited access to the office. Why can't we create something that is engaging as well as educating, that we can look at some of the onboarding that we do, so people can actually start identifying with an Allstate office and learn as we do. So that's where the idea was triggered. Since we knew that we were going to be remote, we kind of started with a simple proof of concept, and we started with the proof of concept for IT. This is our information technology onboarding, and there were a lot of sessions that the IT team would do. I mean, it actually starts with physical one-on-one, where when you are given your laptop, somebody would explain this to you. This went off. So somebody needs to tell you how to log in for the first time, how to kind of as you find the first login screen, what our VPN means, how do you connect using VPN to our Allstate network. If you are working from home, how to set up your remote your home desk. All these were created as videos, and we kind of went with this approach as a first step to explain the basic parts of IT onboarding, and then we kind of extended that to the next stage as well, where we actually have trainings now which shows people how to kind of use our software factory to pick and install software, how to protect your laptop. All of those trainings are also there as part of the next step. I wouldn't call them training, those experiences are there, and the person can go through and understand a lot of what the IT team was otherwise spending time with the employees and explaining it to them. Our approach and our architecture, for any gamified project approach, you need to have like a game engine, you need to have some 3D design tools, and you need to know a little bit of a programming, and this is optional with most of the gaming engine as well as 3D design tools. You're able to create it. So we picked up Unity. We had a lead who was experienced in gamification. He was the one who kind of helped create our proof of concept. His name is Kiran, along with our garage lead Zach. They were the ones who created the first proof of concept. So they kind of picked this idea up of let's do it with using Unity. We needed some 3D design tools as well. That's where Blender came in. Just to give an idea what Blender is, you start with sort of building blocks, like in this case, primitive blocks, and then you create complex objects using these blocks, and you create 3D models out of it. That's what Blender does. Whereas Unity is a complete game engine where you can actually go in and design your game, design your scenarios, and as part of the architecture, it kind of creates an output which you can then host and play back. Our approach, what we picked up, and this is important, when you design a game, you need to kind of understand how the entire setup is going to be. So we decided to go with a first-person perspective. FPS, first-person shooter, is actually a term that has come from games. So if you're a gaming person yourself, or if you have played some games like, I'll probably give my age out when I say this. There used to be these games called Wolf 3D, Doom, and I'm sure there are a lot more FPS games now, multiplayer online games as well, where it's actually a perspective that you see with your own eyes, and you are kind of going in and you are exploring. So that's what we picked up, and let's use that as a mechanism, and let's kind of create an exploratory setup. And we leveraged. So we had this a model or an icon that was already available, which people knew it. It was called Diana, and this was the chatbot avatar that the Allstate IT team had. They already had a chatbot help, and the chatbot was named Diana, and we just picked it up. We kind of gave Diana a 3D shape. It was something like this. We created a 3D shape for her, and then used Diana as a mechanism of guide into this world. So people have some sort of a connection. That they look at Diana, and then when they look at the Allstate IT's chatbot, they will kind of realize that okay, Diana was someone who is a helper who kind of helps me, and it kind of creates a recollection to the IT team as well, and that's where we kind of use this and went in as within the first person experience as well. The way we kind of designed it is there is content, there is information that is provided. So Diana would come in and converse if if explanation is required. There is in-screen graphics videos, so you can actually interact with them. They would trigger certain actions. So if you go click on certain things, it would trigger something. It will play a video. It would show you certain presentation. You can actually type certain things and test things out. Like I explained about an example is like there is a standard by which we create our passwords. So you can actually go type that out and see whether your password would actually conform to what Allstate decides as password, or decides what is the right way in which to construct passwords. So you can test sort of that. It gives you questions. So if you know that it checks your understanding through questions, and if you give the correct answer, it kind of gives you a reward, right? The check, again, what this means when you say checkpoints are linear and there is a self-directed exploration, means there are 10 tasks that we kind of put in at a very high level, but the way in which you would go in and complete these tasks, it's left up to the user. There is no direction saying that you have to go to room 1 first to room 2 first, and it's left to the person how to do it. And the formative assessment, it's based on quizzes and questions. So we just want to know whether the person is actually taking away what we have intended out of what we expect this person to take away from the material that we are providing in this room. So in the conversation, we kind of check that and kind of reiterate that, and we have the data at the back end as well to know how people are doing. So it allows us to collect and then do an analytics on the data of how things are going, and it gives us another trigger point to improve certain things. So if people are getting lost, or if they are not finding the answer, we would need some more either we would need to create some more excitement, or we would need to create some more specifics that helps explain the concept a little bit more. We approach this using gamification best practices, principles of instructional design. I will not get into this because there's a subject area in itself, and I'm not a subject matter expert in this space. But our approach was to create a virtual 3D office. Now, that's the reason why I kind of went back into the story about the pandemic, and we created a pretty, through the gamified approach, we were able to create an experience of how it would be to actually see an Allstate office, because most of the people who joined us from 2022 to probably a good time in 2021 never saw our offices, never saw what was in there. So we wanted to create a 3D that kind of reflected the way in which Allstate offices looks. So you get a experience of seeing how the Allstate offices are as well. And as I said, we used the icon or our model Diana, or an avatar, to control the in-game controls, in-office procedures, that she would be there wherever you're going, and she would kind of help you, because these were primarily, the intent was onboarding. So it would be just like how IT team would help somebody personally when they are picking up laptops and all of that. We wanted that same experience driven by this avatar that is there. So you kind of know that somewhere IT person is there. While that, it could never match the physical experience because it creates relationship, but this kind of came very close to people being comfortable on using that, or identifying this with Diana. And there were, again, different techniques by which we would learn whether the person has picked things up, what we need to do to explain the activity. And if he's missed completing certain things, there would be subtle triggers to say, hey, there's one more room in there that you kind of missed. Why don't you check that out? Or do you know about this? And if the person answers it wrong, he says, look, we explain about this in this room, so why don't you go and check that room again? And that's another trigger that would lead to another action of this person completing this activity. Quickly coming to the technical architecture, we wanted to create a multi-channel experience, but since we were looking at the way in which this could be taken to our end users very quickly, so we decided to go with a browser approach as a phase one. So our architecture is, we use, as I said, we use Unity, and that kind of creates a WebGL code which gets deployed as JavaScript code behind a portal. Um, and that can be accessed easily through a browser. So your entire game gets just deployed as a browser through a portal which people can get access to, and we can actually plan how the access to the portal is controlled. We also had this idea of letting people who have not yet joined us. These are potential employees. Maybe if they want to extend certain experience to them, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. How can we kind of give them an insight into Allstate and what Allstate is? So we could actually potentially give them access to this web portal as well, and they can just experience this through any browser that kind of supports graphics. So Chrome or something like that, they can easily look at this and then get through with this. So that was an approach that we took, which gave us a quick deployment and an early test of what our idea was. So we could come up with, like, within 3 or 4 months, our MVP was ready and we could test it out. And as people were testing out, giving feedback, we kind of enhanced it. And within like 8 to 9 months, an actual product and something that we could roll it out to people was ready, and people started using this. The second part of it, with Unity, you can actually create a complete immersive experience. We use that as the next stage. We are kind of optimizing the code to run smoothly on one of the VR headsets, and there are multiple of it. And you would know those who are in the gaming. I'll probably give a very simplistic explanation. There are VR headsets that are self-contained, meaning you just need the headset and everything will work remotely once your game gets loaded on it. And then there are ones that are just connected to a laptop. So you need a laptop or any kind of a processing unit to get into the VR experience. Depending on which one is the right fit for you, you can pick the VR interface and then create a VR completely fully immersive experience. So it will feel as if you are in an office in a 3D world. You can look around and you will kind of get the feel. And again, you can use certain in-game controls like teleportation that is available through VR. It doesn't work very well with browser-based interaction. So you can actually provide a little more excitement when you are kind of getting into VR. We were thinking that we could take the same code that we created, give a VR experience when people finally come into the office. Like right now we're testing it. So when people are coming in, we give them a VR experience, so then we don't have to go through the whole exercise again. And it's a self driven, personalized interface for people to actually go through an immersive experience as what they would go through a browser. So that was an idea that we kind of did, because we were not definitely planning to ship VR devices to every single new employee whom we were onboarding. It was just again a specific use case in office. When people come in, we would kind of give this experience to them. To talk about our roadmap, we've already extended this to HR onboarding as well. If you can do IT onboarding, we can do HR onboarding. So we've completed that, and it's under end user testing. And I think we've just completed that. We should be releasing that soon. As I said, our approach is a first person single player kind of an interaction as you go through, because you are the intent was for you to start understanding what is there and learn most of it. We are thinking of creating it as a multiplayer environment. So if I extend this to onboarding, I can actually see who are my new joinees, and we will probably see an avatar of them. You can have an interaction. You can actually have a conversation, so somebody can speak. So you can do a virtual webinar, virtual seminar, and you can see the avatars in there. I wouldn't call it an Allstate Metaverse, but this is an environment. If you want to create something like that, an interactive area for our employees or future, current, past, future to come in and interact, we have a platform that we can extend to it. While, I mean, I don't want to get into the metaverse because that's a completely different conversation. And if people are following this um, area, you will know what metaverse is there. That's why I've just put those as question mark, but it allows us with a lot more control. I mean, we have to, end of the day, we still have to go back and see what we are. We are an insurance company, very particular about how we kind of do things, especially security and our perimeter protection is very important to us. So with all of that thinking, if you want to create something, this is a platform that will allow us to quickly jump in rather than looking at an external metaverse or something that is there. We want to, as we get into the multiplayer environment, we can extend chatting, we can extend to voice interaction, and we have kind of seen this, and that's kind of where we want to take this tool. There are multiple requests that we're getting as we kind of show this. There is an idea that is coming in from a team that is located in a different geography to say, can we look at this for employee well-being? And can we explain how employee well-being and value proposition that Allstate has for well-being? Because it's a nice way to kind of explain everything that is there, because these are topics which otherwise, if you just go through a presentation, maybe the recollection is not there so much. And going back to the first use case that we created, we actually created a business use case, then kind of created an internal implementation of it. We can go back to business. And there's a lot of needs for us, like we have an operations team, and they need to understand when say somebody is doing a damage assessment on a home, you need to understand how things work there. Like, what do you mean when you use shingles for roof, right? What is packing material that kind of help insulate walls? What does that mean? Not everybody understands that, especially if you are a novice who is coming into the operations area. So some of these examples can be achieved through gamification, and we are still trying to see how to extend these ideas there. Now, I'll do a quick demo. I'll show, these are images of the IT onboarding. So you can see how we have created it. The space is an office, sort of a space. Sorry, let me go through the slides. So yeah, office sort of a space. So like, how you swipe in and get into Allstate. This also gives you like a swipe in entry into Allstate reception. And from there, you kind of get into a reception area, holding area. These are our training rooms. As you walk into each one of these training rooms, you can go in and see, we've designed it like meeting rooms, but you can go in and see specific area. Like in this case, it talks about our network. It talks about how to kind of connect it. There are messages that you see from our leaders in each of these rooms, takeaways, the entire room with the banners, with the collateral, with like standees, with whiteboards is created with the same topic. So everything that you kind of would explain in a meeting room, we kind of use the same layout to give that look and feel of an office, while people actually go in and understand, like in this case, understands data classification, like what is restricted, what is confidential. So so it explains it with a layout, with interaction to say, okay, in this case, this is what is there on the screen. How would you classify it so your retention is much better, right? So again, examples of showing different spaces in office and then creating an experience accordingly. I'll show, it's a video, but it kind of gives you the experience of how it is. In this case, it explains one of our processes of how to install software. Again, I'll take you through the slides. So this is how we've created the slides. You can actually see the office, reception area, and then, how does it look? There's like a 3D view of the reception area and then the training rooms that we have. And within each of these training rooms, there is a whiteboard. So it would explain exactly like how you would do in a physical session. Certain explanations are given. like on whiteboard, banners are there, and everything in that room, whether it is what the leader speaks, says on the screen, the standees that explain, or the the wallpaper that is there, or the things, the screen on the wall that plays a video is all with that topic. In this case, like we were talking about data restrictions and all of that, or environment restrictions. So it would explain everything with that in mind. And there are interaction as well. Like in this case, like if you see something on the printer, what do you do? I mean, you can actually go in and interact with it, and then know how to kind of safely dispose confidential information and all of that. I'll shift to the video. Is the video visible, Aishwarya?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the video that talks about, or interaction that talks about software and how to kind of go in, install software. There is a training there. It tells you if you don't have the software, who to go talk to get the software. This is how it shows you how to kind of protect your laptop. So it tells you what you need to do to protect your CPU and how to use your battery and CPU power. So you can actually go, there is an interaction there that kind of explains software. This is office room. So it tells you how to install your office, what to do, how to kind of go in and get access to each of these office products and what they do. And this is an example of how you can go in and do your home-based desktop setup. So it shows video, tells you what were the standard. And this is again, a lot of it was pandemic, and it shows you how you will get things, what is included, what is not, and how to kind of unpack it and then start with it. So, so all of these was something that we incorporated. And is my screen visible now?
Yes.
Okay.
I think you're still playing the video, right?
No, video is done, and I'm just shifted to another screen. Are you able to see this, which says Fortune 500 and all of that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the actual interaction. This is the game. This is the browser, and you can see this is our HR interaction portal. So you can see Diana in there, and I am actually moving in like a game. I mean, I know this. I don't want to take a lot of time in showing this, but this is how the gaming works. So I'm actually like a person who is experiencing this, and this is our HR onboarding, where you can see, if I press a map, you can see all the different objectives. It tells you go collect coins, and it tells you where the coins are. And as you go through each of these area, you will get a good idea of Allstate. So that's what I wanted to cover. I think we've done with the presentation part of it. Over to you, Aishwarya.
Thanks a lot, Sudheen, for the insightful session. We definitely have a lot of questions, and for the ones who are asking for the presentation, the chat box, please drop us a note to events@zinnov.com. We'll keep you posted on the same. I think, Sudheen, let's just get started with the question where you'd like to pick your brains on, right? Let's start with the initial slides of the presentation where you talked about the gamification for training in 2018, right? What is the biggest challenge as a company you faced, and how difficult was it to get the leadership buy-in to that?
So, I mean, we did not face a challenge in getting the leadership buy-in. It was pretty obvious when we made the presentation on the gamified approach and how that could kind of help, the training. That was not the challenge for us. The challenge was the execution bit. At that point in time, I just had, as I said, I just had my the manager for Garage and one lead who kind of created this. We did not have the firepower to actually pick up a project and deliver it. So that's the reason why, it actually, I mean, it was right. I mean, we kind of helped the business pick up a vendor and, help get it executed through a vendor. So that, I mean, sometimes when you kind of create, a compelling business proposition, you will not see a challenge. And this was a compelling business proposition.
Got it. So I think a bunch of audience also wanted to know which was the tool that you used for developing VR insurance game.
Sorry, which
tool was used for developing the VR insurance game?
So that was, we've used Unity as well as Blender.
Got it. Have you done any gamified approach for the sales or the pre-sales team within Allstate?
No, we haven't looked at gamified approach for sales or pre-sales, but that's again, I mean, there are a lot of these. As you kind of explain this, there are a lot of ideas. Again, we would be using it to kind of sell nuances or sell, certain things. Now, I was part of, I wouldn't say, I don't want to take an Allstate example, but in my previous company, I used to be part of a bank. There was another gamified approach which we took to explain the benefits from a investments point of view, and this was on in the brokerage and the retirements team. So the retirements benefits team used games to explain scenarios of how why you would need to invest. So it would create scenarios, like it was an actual game that you can play. It was called the game of retirement, where you can go in and at each stage it will throw challenges at you, like, okay, you have had a car accident and you're off. You are not, I mean, how would you kind of take care of your investments that you have done? If you have invested certain things, when when it comes to your child's education, how do you kind of reap that benefit? So it showed you how to create investments, and it created live scenarios in an automated gaming fashion, and then showed you how those investments actually helped you. So it helped you improve your knowledge about investments. So I've seen that also happen, not just this.
Got it. So the question now is in line with the previous question that we had, right? Bunch of them want to know that what is the value proposition you highlighted in your business case to your leadership team?
So the value proposition through this is, one is training and explanation is very difficult, right? If you want to explain to, as I said, the nuances of what you need to check, it's very difficult to go through like a physical training, because you can't take them to a house and then show you how a house looks, right? Most of it is done through images and through certain material. This was an additional benefit. So it was, the experience changed when you're actually interacting with the house. You're breaking the wall open and showing where the, say, insulation material is. You're actually taking them to the basement, showing where the pipes are and what could happen if there's a basement flooded. Looking at the fire, I mean, you can't create these scenarios, right? If you want to show, like, if there is a fire in the kitchen, you want to see how the fire spread and where all the damages are, and identifying specific areas so that you can actually do an insurance assessment on it. It's much more easier to be done in a gamified manner. So the business case itself was a better understanding and a better recollection, which, I mean, it was pretty easy to sell.
Got it. So how are you able to show the return on investment or saving using this gamified approach?
So that comes as part of our, I mean, you can't use that to create your business case. But once you create your MVP and deploy it, like the example that I gave, there is analytics that you can take away, right? See, like if I draw an equivalence to what we did, like a regular onboarding and training, which you see on day one, every employee goes through, right? There are certain metrics that you compute, where you say, okay, was this session effective? What was there? And LNLD kind of computes all of that and then tells you how to improve from the next session onwards. We can do this real time. We can do this to the specific of the questions. We can do this because the data is available there. So suddenly the dynamics change because you have online availability of information and you can improve it, right? So through that, you can then justify to say that if you've done this, that's why you need to start small with a MVP, show that it actually creates an improvement in recollection, retention, because you can see how people are answering the questions. You can see how people are getting engaged, because see, there is no compulsion, like you're asking them to sit for 8 hours in a induction session morning till evening. I mean, that is compulsion. In this case, the person is free to kind of explore it on his own. So you can see how certain triggers are working, how the interest is, and that kind of gets you to your business proposals, right?
Okay.
That kind of gets you to then go in and say, okay, should we invest more in this? Is this working? And that's the reason why you can see that we have invested more and we're kind of growing this space.
Got it. How long does it take to build a game of this sort? And can you give an approximate cost that it costed for Allstate? I'm sure it's difficult
I
to
don't
give a
want to give
number,
an
but
approximate cost. I can tell you that since it was done in India, it was probably the cheapest that we could get this done. But it took us, as I said, the MEP took us about 4 to 5 months to get it to a full-fledged stage. It took us about a year, in the sense year with continuous kind of delivery in an agile fashion. And we had about 4 people at the max working on it. I mean, sometimes it's not even less than 4. There were at least like just 2 or 3 people doing this. So it's not that we have invested a lot of talent in this space. So there are only 3 to 4 people working on this to get it to this shape. But
so we're talking,
like to get our HR portal ready, it took us about 3 to 4 months with 2 people working on it.
Got it. So as we were talking about the talent involved in building this, right? Where the existing employees were involved in it, or there was a specialized team created
so
for it?
you need to have specialized skills. As I said, gamification, people who think from that angle, you need to bring them in. It's not something which you can take someone and then train. They need to kind of have that orientation. Only then you will be able to create the experience that people require, right? Otherwise, it's just, I mean, I wouldn't call it as gamification at all. So you need somebody who has done game design. And we had, as I said, we were kind of lucky to get that kind of a talent in. And that person actually helped us create this. And then we got a couple more developers as well as a specialist in 3D design along with him to help create this journey. And I have my the person who kind of heads our innovation garage. He is kind of overseeing and he's giving them direction, and he also has an interest in and background in gamification, and that's what kind of led to where we were. The talent difficulty is so it's very difficult for me to be an insurance company and attract gamers, even though we are ready to offer them competitive compensation. We're finding it that people are coming back and asking us to say, what is an insurance company doing in gamification? And that's a very difficult answer as well. And we kind of show them like how I showed you what we have. We show them what we are trying to build and what is required, and only then we see certain interest. But there is, again, I wouldn't say there is a lot of talent available in the space. And if there is talent available in the space, they prefer like an actual game development agency, or even now you can see with like Dream 11 and all these other companies starting, that there is a lot of opportunity for them there. And that's where that's the challenge for us as well when it comes to going and attracting people.
So as it's majorly for the new joiners, how did you make sure that the new joiners were able to understand the usage of Dyna, right? Was there any challenges? Was there any specific trainings provided?
No. I mean, then it would be counterproductive, right? So we wanted the new joiners to have that recollection of the Dyna avatar. So when they come in here, right, and when they see how to kind of contact IT, they remember that it is Dyna and there's a chatbot there, right? So that's why we created and used the same avatar or the same ID there to enhance this gamification that we did. So that's the connection that we could do from onboarding to actually when they are productive, that there is a recollection of Dyna, and we kind of start using the same term everywhere.
Got it. As we're talking about the chat box, I think a few of them wanted to know that, is there any sample scenarios that you wanted to call out on how the chat box works?
I mean, it's a different topic. We have not integrated the chatbot in the gamification part, because that was, I mean, we didn't have a use case for it. And I don't think there is an interactivity at this point in time. But chatbot kind of works in helping them with basic questions and answers, like, okay, my laptop is freezing, something like what to do. It kind of goes through the same questions and then helps you connect with the agent. If after a automated chatbot, it connects you with an actual agent on chat who will try and solve your IT issues for you. So that's our portal towards, or that's our approach towards, our IT support as well as IT maintenance.
Correct. So what is the approximate number of onboarding generally Allstate has in a week or month's time?
I prefer not to answer that question. It kind of gives us how many people we are onboarding, but I can tell you that we've added significant talent in even during the pandemic. We are growing. It is definitely and it's a weekly onboarding process for us. So it's not like we can onboard them at any point in time. So there are days in which we onboard. So the numbers, while the number of people whom we get on board are could be spread across the onboarding part on that day. It's you will see a lot of people coming and joining these onboarding sessions.
Got it. As you know that with the return to offices in full swing, right? You still feel that the virtual onboarding will still be as effective as the in-person one?
Yes, because we are kind of in a hybrid mode to begin with, right? So because we have this, it makes the job of our IT support specialists much more easier, because they come, they know what to do. They know how to kind of set things up. And when they come in, they can go in and sit in a room and then take this in the office. So it is as effective, because as I said, we've added a lot more things apart from the basic things that that we have seen on screen, and that kind of gives you more opportunity to kind of enhance it, and because it's already there now. I mean, it's already there now, and while we are in a hybrid mode, so a person can come and take his laptop, doesn't need to stay there, right? He can take it home on that day and then go through some of these sessions and even know how to kind of connect the laptop from home because of this session that is there.
Got it. So I'm just going to add on to the same question, right? But Sudheen, we constantly talk about losing the human touch because of the entire virtual onboarding process and so on and so forth, right? How, as a company, do you think you can overcome that, right? Because at the end of the day, as an employee, you would prefer that.
Yeah. So I mean, the idea is not to, again, be away with the human touch, right? As I said, a compulsion kind of started to get into this. We knew that we will be coming back. It's not that we are doing everything through this gamified platform that we were trying to do. We still want to kind of continue because it kind of makes sense. You also have to understand that we are spread across locations now, right? So if we are doing an onboarding and there is a person who is doing it from Bangalore and helping an onboarding, or there is a person who is getting onboarded in Pune, he's sitting in Pune office, that is going to be a digital interaction anyway. So we also have to understand that wherever we have this human touch, we will continue with it. Like our MD's presentation is always going to be either virtual, I mean, in a video conference manner, or I mean, he kind of comes in physically and then addresses people who are there in that room on that day. So such kind of things we will never try and gamify. I mean, doesn't make sense in just like having an interaction with a leader through a video or through an avatar. I mean, I don't think we will be doing it. So these are the things that you need to think about to say, okay, what is commodity and what is what do you kind of keep closer to your heart, which you think needs to be done physically, and if the physical kind of allows for it, all about go for it, and that will help. But then we also have to understand how things have changed post pandemic, right? It's also about user preferences. Again, and if this kind of opens another avenue, another channel for us, that's how I see it as my return on the investments that we have done on this, that it allows us to maintain another channel, which, if it's left to the person who is kind of consuming it as to what he wants. I mean, tomorrow I'll be able to offer this as an option, right? I mean, you want to come into office, go through a physical induction. Here's the thing: you don't see time to do it, or you think you are not comfortable, or there is another work type option that we have offered. Feel free to use the gamified approach that we have.
Absolutely. I think probably a minute back, we were talking about the roles that were evolving due to this gamification, right? What are the challenges as a company that you face in hiring for these roles?
As I said, I think I've answered that question. I said the challenges is convincing them to join a company like Allstate, an insurance, traditional insurance organization, and tell them that we are getting into gamification, uh, and trying to build that talent. Again, look, at the end, if I look at the tech talent that we have, this is not going to be a significant amount of our talent. If it's still a small team for us. So, and we will kind of get specialists. It's not that I'm going to prepare talent for this, and I'm not going to hire freshers and train them on gamification and keep them ready, because we don't have that kind of a scale to begin with. I'm going to pick up experienced people and then kind of use them, and that's where I would say is a challenge for us to convince them convincing them to join Allstate.
Got it. I think we talked about the onboarding process and other processes where gamification can be utilized, right? How do you think it can be adopted for enhancing the learning and development strategy of an organization?
So my view is LNLD, in the future should have a gamified approach or gamification as a possible channel through which they can enhance knowledge at some point in time. And we will see examples of this where a lot of what we call as either behavioral driven trainings or certain skill driven trainings will be gamified with the technology that is available there. I know that more than like in a BFSI environment, it could be explanation of a process, it could be explanation of how things work so that you get a better understanding. And we've tried to do that. I mean, as I said, I used to work for a bank previously, so we have gamified how a mortgage process would look, and explain this to a person so that he can see the end-to-end view of a mortgage process, and he can see that from a different perspectives. So there are opportunities, and there's a huge opportunity in the retail space as well as in the manufacturing space, especially on we have seen a lot of examples or a lot of people talk about this, and I'm sure it is there. If you go to, say, a company like Boeing, or if you go to some some of these large manufacturing industries, they have like digital twins of their engines, their their products, where you can actually, through a gamified interaction, you can see the components, what makes it makes your understanding much more easier than maybe seeing a physical thing, which is like the size of it is quite huge. Like I'm sure if you want somebody to understand the components of a rocket, instead of like looking at a rocket which is like 30-40 stories high and making him climb up and down and see the components in there, this is a much more easier way of actually showing things there. So a lot of applicability in the learning and development in various industries that I see. How do you pick it up and kind of customize it to your industry is probably left to the individuals to kind of look at.
Got it. So I think we talked about you planning this strategy for India, right? What are the challenges you see in scaling this globally?
I said no challenge, because our first project was global. We do see a lot of adoption in this. Again, it depends on what is your business strategy, right?
Okay.
So we have this business strategy of onboarding what we call as gig economy workers, right? Especially in areas of insurance claims and claims adjusters, as well as looking at damage assessments and all of that, right? And there is a platform that is available out there where you can actually pick people up, just like and be an aggregator, where you can go in, and if there is a accident happen, somebody can go in there as a assessor can go in and assess the damage and give a report out, right? Trainings for him can be gamified, and there is a lot of interest in the business to gamify trainings from that point of view, to adopt technologies like this. So this is an approach where then you can actually certify somebody, make sure his understanding is correct, rather than doing it physically, because then through gig economy, I mean, it gives you, as I said, it gives you a lot of benefits where an individual at his own pace and his own time can go do this. Otherwise, you're just making like a YouTube video list available. This is much more effective than that.
Got it. So let's talk a bit about the external ecosystem, right? So what are the evolving startups around this area, and is Allstate any plans to work with any of them closely?
So we haven't seen a lot of startups in this area yet. There are a couple whom we have had conversations, but they are again providing services at this point in time. There are a couple that we have used, like if you look at the game design that we have done, the 3D models that we have used, there are people who have created it and are selling these 3D models. So we have gone ahead and procured like components from them, and these are startups that are creating this. So your game design becomes much more easier. Like you take a model, you customize certain things from it, and then add that to your scenario. It brings your time down significantly. So you can look at those options as well to increase your productivity. So even if you have less people, and that's where the talent comes in, that, you know, if there is a global pool of people who are creating some of these things, you can just incorporate that and quickly create a space or an area with that in mind.
Got it.
And there are startups, that's where startups can be useful.
Got it. Thanks, Sudheen, for that. Probably last question for today is based on your experience to the one who are getting started with their journey in this field, right? What are your 2 cents of advice to them?
So I mean, have people who really understand this. First thing takeaway would be that gamification is not very easy. Have people who understand gamification, how to create a gamified approach, and then look at, as I said, the hook that you would want, the hook model, and create your game with that in mind. And make sure from day one you look at the effectiveness of it, so you can improve. Because a lot of it, we assume, I mean, even game designers, when they do it, they take the scenario with a gamer in mind, right? Like simple usage of keys, right? I have a different orientation of what keys I would use. Gamers use ASWD. That's the gaming approach. So if you just do ASWD and then, you know, forget other things, you can see an experience issue coming there. So think from a non-gamer point of view, which is your customer, your end users, maybe non-gamers, but then use gamers to really create that excitement, because that's where you will see the richness. And then I think go back to why you are doing this, which is what we will probably ask, right? Why, what is that you're intending, and then focus on it and create a couple of outcomes that you expect, and you should be able to create a compelling business case.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Sudheen. That was a really valuable advice, and that's it we have for you today. Once again, it was really thought-provoking session, and we definitely had quite a bit of takeaways, right? It was an absolute pleasure to host you, and to the ones who joined us today, hope you found today's session insightful. Thank you once again, and see you in our next Zinnov webinar. Take care and stay safe. Have a great week ahead.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone.